Alright, hello everybody, welcome back again, this time to my item builds. This is my item set for AP Jungle Malphite, and my experience with this so far is that it is extremely effective, and you can carry solo queue super hard with this. So if this looks troll to you, I promise you I will explain. Just keep your mind open and keep listening, and I will explain how this works, and it does work. It works really well. So first of all, like I have with all of my item sets, I have a pink ward. I start Hunter's Talisman and Refillable because it gives you the best sustain, the best regen in the jungle. And of course we have an Oracles for objectives, and the different boots that I like to use, I either use Boots of Mobility or Sorcerer's Shoes. If I run with a more heavy Magic Pen build, I usually go Sorcerer's Shoes, but Boots of Mobility is my preferred go-to boot, but then I settle it later. If I ever get 6 items, I get a full build, I may as well sell the Boots of Mobility for Sorcerer's Shoes later on. Speaking of late game, Elixir of Sorcery for additional damage. Not much else to say there. You can switch it out for the other one, the Elixir of Iron, I think is what it's called. Yeah, this one. It's not that effective because you're not tank Malphite, so the health is not as useful as it looks like. But the real reason why you could buy this if you wanted to is because it makes you bigger, it makes your champion bigger, which is very nice for Malphite specifically because it makes it easier for him to hit his ultimate. You can knock people up more easily because the radius increases with the champion. And the same thing applies to your E, so... Okay, so... onto the actual full builds, I have 3 different main builds that I use. They all have the same start, which is Luden's Runic Echoes into Lichbane, sorry. And the reason why we start this, well, there's a couple reasons. Reason number 1 is because it gives us the damage that we need to one-shot squishies. This is partially because of the Spellblade from Lichbane, but it's also because of the passive from Runic Echoes. The other reason why I always start this is because it gives me a lot of movement speed, which is fucking awesome for Malphite jungle, because the more movement speed you have, the easier it is to pull off ganks faster, which is very nice. And then the last thing to mention is the cooldown reduction from Lichbane is absolutely vital, because you gotta have your ult up, a reasonable amount of time in the mid-game. Otherwise, you can't spam gank people. So the cooldown reduction and the movement speed goes hand in hand, basically. Also, the mana is kind of nice, but of course, that's not really why we're buying the item. That's just like a cute little quality of life thing. But then once I have those 2 items, I do 3 different things mainly. I either do a magic resist heavy build if the enemy mid laner or any AP champion on the enemy team is super fed. I go Spirit Visage after Lichbane. If I need armor, I go Sunfire Cape. Or if my team just needs a shit ton of damage, specifically magic damage, I go with this other build, which is just basically pure damage, and then you just have Zhonya's for your defense. And that's it. So the theory behind the Spirit Visage build is really simple. Spirit Visage is a great item for Malphite, even AP Malphite. Not because of the healing that it gives you, but because it gives you a massive chunk of health, some decent magic resist, and it gives you 10% cooldown reduction. So having that cooldown reduction right after your Lichbane is really nice. On top of that, the healing is not wasted if you buy a Gunblade, which, by the way, is also awesome on AP Malphite. The attack damage is not wasted because you're auto-attacking people a lot, and of course the ability power is just fucking awesome. Now, the heal has great synergy with Spirit Visage, and the active is also really nice. The slow from the active is not super vital. That's not really why we're buying it. I mean, we already have an AoE knockup from our ultimate, and we have a single target slow from our Q already, so we don't really need another one. But the active is nice, the damage is nice, it gives us an additional third AP scaling on top of the passives from Runic Echoes and Lichbane. So, and also we have to consider the fact that both the Lichbane passive and the Hextech Gunblade active are single target damage types, which means the damage that your Lichbane deals and the damage that your Gunblade active deals makes you heal for 15% of that every time. It's not 33% as effective. And of course you have to consider that that is amplified by Spirit Visage as well. So this is by far the most tanky build out of all of these three, because you're getting a very defensive item relatively early, Spirit Visage, and you're getting a lot of leech. Now, it sounds kind of funny for me to say that it's the most defensive item on Malphite, considering that it literally has no armor in it, but that is how it is, because we're playing AP Malphite, because that's how you carry solo queue. Finally, we finish off with Liandry's Torment, partially because it makes us tankier, and partially because it has great synergy with Malphite. The spell burn is nice because you have a lot of CC, you have soft CC with Gunblade and your Q, you have hard CC with the knock-up from your ultimate, so the burn is nice. But also, just the flat magic pen is nice for killing squishies, and of course the ability power overall, it's just a really great item. Okay, the second build that I use very often is the Sunfire build. I'm skipping this one for now, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I want to talk about the Sunfire build first because that's the most commonly used one, at least by me it is. Basically, you get the Sunfire Cape, and this is like your armor version of Spirit Visage, except Sunfire Cape is better in one sense and worse in another. It's better in the sense that it gives you damage as well as defense, so it's not this build is not quite as defensive as the Spirit Visage build, but it's worse in the sense that your cooldown reduction is delayed because Sunfire Cape has no CDR on it. So it is a great item, it's really awesome to build, but you're not going to be spamming ganks quite as much as you can with the more tanky, more defensive Spirit Visage build. That, however, is also the reason why we get Abyssal Scepter. Now, the two auras are really, really great. They have great synergy with one another. Your AoE damage with this build overall is just ridiculous. And, of course, we also get the Abyssal Scepter because the magic resist pairs nicely with the health that you already have, and it gives you the cooldown reduction that you didn't get from your Sunfire Cape initially. So Abyssal Scepter is really nice here. And then we finish off with Liandry's Torment for the exact same reasons why we did it up here. Great synergy with Malphite overall, as well as a little bit of extra tankiness. Now finally, the last build that I use, personally, is, as you can see, what I call the Death build. This is the build that I will use if the rest of my team is full AD. If we have a Zed mid lane or whatever, whatever's going on, or my team just doesn't have a lot of damage and I'm gonna have to be the carry, then this is what I use. Now, since we're building a shit ton of damage with this build, it's important that we get the Zhonya's relatively early. This doesn't mean that we get it before Lichbane, it just means it's the first item we get after Lichbane. If you delay the Zhonya's further than that, you're gonna get one-shotted in every situation where you go in, so delaying Zhonya's is not worth it. On top of that, you also have to consider the cooldown reduction you're getting from Zhonya's is really nice, so there's just no reason not to get this item. And then we finish with standard Death Cap and Void Staff. This is what you see on pretty much all Glass Cannon builds. They all have Rabadons and Death Cap as far as AP champions go. This is just because these are the most powerful, most aggressive, offensive AP items in the game. If you want to be tankier with this build, you can switch out the Void Staff for something else. The reason why you want to switch out the Void Staff rather than the Death Cap is because AP Malphite is not focusing on killing tanks. He's focusing on killing squishies. So the Void Staff is not necessary. It is a good item, but it's not... You can play without it, basically, is what I'm saying. So if you want to be a little tankier with this build, you could switch the Void Staff out for a Liandry's Torment. Or you could even switch it for something like, say, a Rylai's, for example. The reason why I don't do this is because I like the flexibility and damage that Void Staff gives me, because it allows me to deal more damage to the team overall in the late game, because the later in the game you go, the more magic resist everybody has. Even the AD carry might have quite a significant amount. And on top of that, Rylai's doesn't really have a lot of synergy with Malphite. I mean, the slow doesn't apply with your W, it's weak with your E, and it works well with your Q, admittedly, but your Q is already a slow. You don't need a slow on top of a slow. So Rylai's, to me, is really not the best item for Malphite. So that's why I just go straight damage with this build. Although, like I said, you could go Liandry's instead of Void. It's up to you. And of course, we get the Death Cap because it gives us percentage AP, and we have 5 AP items. I mean, you could get a Death Cap with the other 2 builds, but I don't do that because there's only 4 items, so the percentage AP increase is not as significant, and on top of that, I like having the extra survivability in the other items. So that's why I only go death cap with this build. Anyway, I hope you guys try this out. I hope you're not too close-minded to consider this. It's actually extremely effective, so try this out in solo queue. I've already carried many games with this myself. And if you want to see the Runes and Mastery setup that I use, then there's a link in this video coming up right here. Thanks for watching.